Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about the pros and cons of Mariner of the Seas, which is a Royal Caribbean Voyager-class ship. I recently went on this cruise ship and enjoyed it. I have another video where I talk about the exciting journey and the hurricane that came through on the way. But today we just want to focus on the pros and cons of the ship. If you want to see more of the highlights of the whole trip and the ship all together, that is also on my channel. So for now, let's just jump right into it. Hi, I'm Scott. Thank you for coming to my channel. This channel is dedicated to all things cruises and living life with gratitude. We're going to talk about cruise reviews. We're going to talk about the ships. We're going to talk about the overall experiences on these cruises. We're going to talk about traveling solo, traveling as a big guy, and all sorts of other things. My hope is that you are able to find some value in the content that I'm providing, and if so, I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel and liking the videos that I produce. So, here's to our journey together, Grateful Living Cruises. Now let's get right into it. Mariner of the Seas is a fantastic ship, so let's first talk about the stats. So, Mariner of the Seas, in my opinion, is kind of a more medium-sized ship. It's not as big as the new mega ships, and it's not as small as the really old original ships, but it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It has 15 total decks, 14 of which are guest decks, 1,200 crew members, 1,675 staterooms, and it holds 3,344 guests at double occupancy. So that's about half of what the mega ships are holding right now. It's 139,000 gross tons, and it is a wonderful ship that I really enjoy. I think this size of ship is that perfect medium for me, because I'm not one that needs a huge ship, and I don't necessarily want a tiny ship, but for me it's just about right. The maiden voyage of this ship was in 2003, but it was revamped in, I believe, 2018. So in that renovation, the Royal Promenade, that whole like mall type area, the Royal Theater, and then some of the areas like the slides and splash zone and all that were all updated. So some of the ship has been updated and some has not, but that gives you an idea about the size of the ship in case you're wondering or planning on booking this ship. You'll kind of have an idea. It's not as big. It doesn't feel as overwhelming as the large mega ships, but it's big enough that you can still have a lot of the amenities and fun, as we'll talk. So let's talk about the pros and cons of dining here on the Mariner of the Seas. So for me, I think you have a lot of dining options considering the size of the ship is not as large as these new mega ships. Will you have as many options as you would on a mega ship? No. But do I think if you're on a 2 to 5 night sailing, which I believe at the time of this recording is mostly what Mariner of the Seas has out of Galveston, Texas, then I think you'll find plenty of options. So for dining, not only do you have the main dining room and the Windjammer buffet, but you also have what they call the boardwalk doghouse, which is kind of like a gourmet hot dog stand that you can kind of jazz it up any way you would like. And then you also have the cafe promenade, which is just kind of like a place where you can grab sandwiches and things like that. So those are all free or complimentary options included in your fare that you've already paid, Royal Caribbean. But let's talk a little bit more about them. The dining room, or the main dining room, to me always has excellent customer service. Those waiters and assistant waiters do a phenomenal job. They're always working hard to make sure that your experience is enjoyable, and I really love that about Royal Caribbean. I have been on other cruise lines where I've waited and waited and waited just to get a piece of bread. So I have always personally had a great experience with the service in the main dining room on all the Royal Caribbean ships that I've been on, and I'm I'm not like a super picky person, but I do like good service. I mean, you're paying a lot of money to go on these cruises and you expect good service, right? So I feel like the main dining room on Mariner of the Seas really does and consistently does a great job. So that is definitely a pro for the main dining room. Now, I will say, if you're expecting like fantabulous meals, if you eat fine dining at home all the time, then don't go into this expecting that you're going to get, you know, that fine dining taste that you become accustomed to. But for a big cruise ship that's serving thousands of people every single day for every single meal, I think what you're getting in the main dining room here on Mariner of the Seas is really a good thing. So, also in addition to the dining room, you have the Windjammer buffet. The Windjammer buffet on Mariner of the Seas, I believe this buffet has a lot of options for different people. And that's one thing I love about it, because they take into consideration different diets. No pork, vegetarian, Indian food versus Mediterranean versus American options. They do a great job of having a variety, and I really appreciate that about the Windjammer. I've talked about it before, but that is one of my favorite things about the Windjammer compared to some other ships I've been on, is just the variety and the options that I have no matter what particular diet I may be on at that time. For example, we don't eat pork, so it's always nice to know that they have all beef hot dogs, and they have vegetarian options, and they will always have something in the buffet that will satisfy my needs, and pretty much any diet, I would think. So that's a plus about the Windjammer buffet. You do need to be aware, however, that if you go to the buffet during peak times, there may be a lot of people, the lines may be crowded, it may be hard to find a seat, but I've always tried to find those times either right before or right after the main rush, and I've never had a problem. So I think it's definitely doable. Now, there are specialty restaurants on Mariner of the Seas, and specialty restaurants are those restaurants that you have to pay an extra fee to dine there. And they have the Chef's Table, Chops Grill, Izumi, Jamie's Italian, Johnny Rockets, Playmaker Sports Bar, and also Starbucks for those of you who consider Starbucks a dining option. But those venues do ask for an extra fee, and typically you want to reserve these ahead of time. Sometimes if you have not reserved them ahead of time, then there could be a wait, or they may be full and you have to choose another time and or day. But these offer you a more, upscale, specialty, truly, as the name says, experience with steaks and sushi and Italian food. So, these are just specialty restaurants that do require a little bit extra fee for you to partake in. But I still think that depending on your scenario, it could still be a really great option for you. So I do believe that the specialty restaurants can be beneficial and a nice change of pace from the dining room and the buffet. So if you're interested, check those out. And again, I think if you're on a shorter sailing, if you're not more than 5 days, these are going to be plenty of options for you, and I think you'll be satisfied. One thing I will say, even though the specialty restaurants do cost an additional fee from what you've already paid for your fare on the cruise, if you take look at the app, the Royal Caribbean app, prior to your sailing, oftentimes they run sales. For example, I'm about to go on 2 back-to-back different ships, and last night I was looking and they had 50% off of specialty dining package, which is like the all-you-can dine specialty package. And then they had like 40 to 50% off of the individual restaurants. So if you keep an eye on the app before your cruise, sometimes you can find great deals, and it's definitely worth it. So stay tuned to the app for sure. Let's talk about bars and lounges. Now, I do not drink alcohol, but I used to back in the day. So I do understand the appeal for the bars and lounges. And on Mariner of the Seas, you have plenty of options, in my opinion. You have Boleros, Barnacle and Barrel, the Plaza Bar, the Pool Bar, the Schooner Bar, which is my favorite, Sky Bar, Solarium Bar, the Star Lounge, the Bamboo Room, which is also really cool, and the Viking Crown Lounge. So I think that's like 10 bars and lounges on Mariner of the Seas. So that's not bad at all for a ship that's half the size of these mega ships. And you know, by the way, I like the Schooner Bar because typically that's where the piano lounge is, where they do like the piano singing and the guys playing and you can submit your requests. So I really like that bar because you can participate without drinking alcohol. The only thing I would say to be careful about if you are a non-drinker like I am is if you have the classic soda package, sometimes I've ran into where some of the bartenders aren't willing to give me like the whole can of Coke Zero because they want to just pour it in a glass of ice. And if you're carrying your own Stanley mug or something like that, it may not be enough to fill it up. So it may vary on the bar or bartender. I'm not really sure, but I have ran into that. So if you are in my scenario and you're carrying around your Stanley and you're wanting to fill it up, just be patient. You know, they're most likely doing what they're told to do and they're working their hardest for us. So just keep that in mind. Now, in terms of other amenities, this ship also has tons to offer. So when we talk about amenities, I'm talking about entertainment, the thrill seeker type stuff, and other things. So they have a casino. Of course they have a casino on a cruise ship, right? They have your regular jogging track for those of you who want to like go outside and get your steps in. They have a library, which actually is pretty cool. So and they actually have books that you can review, or you can just go in there and work if you want to just kind of get some work done somewhere else. Of course, they have the mini golf, they have the outdoor movies, they have lots of pools. They have the rock climbing wall on Mariner of the Seas. They have the adults only solarium area, which is kind of nice. They have a sports court, which is where the basketball, pickle, all that stuff goes on. They have the Studio B, which is the ice skating rink in addition to the Royal Theater, where they do shows and productions that are very nice. They have whirlpools. They have all kinds of stuff. They even have the little sky bouncer thing. I forget exactly what that sky bouncer thing is called, but they do have that as well. So they have a lot of stuff. They even have the surf simulator on this ship too, which is kind of one of my favorite things to go and watch. I don't know, something about watching people, especially in the beginning of the cruise, because they wipe out a lot. But it's also kind of fun to see their progress from the beginning of the cruise to the end of the cruise. Some of these people get really fantastic and they're like rock stars on this thing. There's a ton of stuff to do on this ship, and I think the offering that they have for the size of the ship is plenty to keep you occupied. They have multiple shows, they have multiple things to do outdoors, they have multiple things to do indoors. And speaking of things to do, if you look at the schedule of events daily on the ship, especially Mariner of the Seas, for some reason to me feels like they have more things to do on this ship than you can even imagine attending all of them. Like, you would have to go on this cruise ship several times to do everything they have listed. And that's not always the case when you're traveling. If you're someone who really likes to stay busy, definitely I think this would be for you. Of course, I'm more happy just sitting on the balcony and listening to the water, or watching the people on the surf simulator, or you know, things like that. But if you are a busybody, definitely this ship has plenty of stuff to keep you busy for sure. Let's talk about the rooms a little bit. The rooms can feel a little dated, I'm not gonna lie. I have a video here of my balcony stateroom, my ocean view balcony stateroom, that I'm gonna have on the channel, so you can check that out to see what it looks like. But just keep in mind, the ship was built in 2003, and in the remodel in 2018, I believe it was, they did kind of revamp the ship, but they didn't necessarily touch all the rooms. Your room, although I feel like Royal Caribbean does a great job of maintaining their rooms and maintaining their ships, it can feel a little dated. You know, the couch is a little green, and you know, not green because it's dirty, but green because that's the color that was popular back in the day. And you'll notice that it's not like the brand new mega ships. However, I really didn't have a problem with it. It was comfortable. It had plenty of space. Even though it was older, I had plenty of plugs and such, even though I always bring my own, like, extenders. I thought the rooms were comfortable, albeit a little bit dated. So I wouldn't let that bother you per se, because unless you're just spending all your time in the room anyway, this ship has so much to offer outside of your room. And even saying that, I do think that the room was plenty of comfortable. My bed was perfect. I slept great. I barely even sat on the couch because I was either on my balcony or something like that. I don't think you're going to have a problem. I think you will enjoy it. I think it's going to be just fine for your sailings. I really enjoyed everything about this ship. It's one of my favorite ships, to be honest. I really didn't have any trouble at all. I thought it was a perfect size ship, and I definitely would recommend Mariner of the Seas to anyone, especially if you live in Texas, because you can just drive down to Galveston and hop on the ship. I think it's a fantastic ship. I don't think you should snooze on the ship. A lot of people think just because it's a little smaller and a little older that it's not going to be as fun or entertaining, but that is wrong. Give Mariner of the Seas a try, and I promise you, you will be okay. I hope you like this information. I hope it gave you some insight about the ship and my thoughts about it. If you're planning your cruise on Mariner of the Seas, or you've been on Mariner of the Seas before, feel free to give me some comments about what you liked about the ship, and let's keep it positive. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.